Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we are back again with another video uh, on a kind of bunch of few videos containing multiple topics over the top domains of my very new channel VAPT. Okay, so today we are going to know about a very useful security tool which is mainly used for the VAPT domain for vulnerability assessments. So it's Nikto. It's basically an open source tool, and it's open source, so it's free, and it's a command line based utility. Of course, a vulnerability scanner. Uh, it is basically for the web servers, and it lists out all the outdated server softwares, if any, and it performs kind of generic and server type specific checks. It also captures and kind of prints out any cookies whichever are received whenever we are scanning over any domain. So yeah, we do have many more vulnerability scanners like Nessus, OpenVAS, Qualys. I guess Nessus is a basic one free, but a professional is paid, and Qualys is also somewhat free, and OpenVAS is majorly open source. Okay, so now let's start and boot up our virtual machine over the VMware, and there we have OWASP. There we have our OWASP broken web application, which we will be using, and I generally use for basically learning pen testing or web-based any attacks for performing those, or for the mainly the VAPT domain. So I would resume the machine for now, and I have paused the machine, so it is starting. So let's give it a minute.
A few moments later.
Okay, so we have our machine working, and let's check the IP for that. And I guess it's not clear for you, so let me zoom it a bit. And there you have the IP, which is 192.168.2.80. Okay, so let me turn off it, and let's go back to our. Okay, so that's probably done for now. And let's start with the very first tool, which is Nikto, and we would have a help for all the commands whichever we have. Okay, so we have these many options for this tool, and probably for now uh, I'll be using, I guess, only the -h. Okay, we should do that. -h. Okay, so there comes a bunch of those, right? Okay, so we'll be just substituting -h for domaining the host and probably scanning that IP. Okay, so first let me show you that what it really is and how it works. So for that, let me open up my Brave browser. I usually use that. Uh, 192.168.2.18. Let's go. Okay, so that's our open OWASP Broken Web Application project, and it's basically of the OWASP community, which is the Open Web Application Security project, and that's the Broken Web Application. Okay, so we have a bunch of the training applications, some realistic, intentionally vulnerable applications, some old vulnerable versions of some real applications, and some applications for testing tools, some demonstration pages or small applications, and some of the open demonstration applications. So we have only one. Okay, so let's go for the tool and let's wipe out, and let's use Nikto -h for using the host, which is in our case the this particular IP. So we would copy this IP and we would open up the terminal back again and paste it. There we have. Then we just give any output file if we require. So in my case, I probably would not require, but for just showcasing purpose, I would be generating an output. So presently, I am in my home directory, as you can see, and I'll be using my present working directory uh, with the variable which is pwd, and I'll be storing my scans in the I will probably make up a new one, and cd github make directory uh, scan, or probably Nikto scan. Okay, right. So there we will be going to the GitHub, and there we have Nikto scan, and they will be having a name with 192.txt, or probably 18. Okay, so that's really nice. Okay, let's go it out from here. Let's clear the screen so that you guys are able to see it clearly. And let's initiate the scan. Okay, so the scan is initiated. There we have the Nikto, which is at version 2.1.6, and there's the scan going on. Okay, so probably the scan runs, I would give you some information about the installation. So if you are on a Debian based Linux system, so you can directly use the sudo apt install Nikto, but I am using an Arch Linux, so I would probably use pacman -s and the Nikto. Okay, so probably it comes built in with the Kali, but if you aren't using Kali and using some other operating system, so you can just install it that way. Okay, so that's finished. Okay, so we pretty much get uh, very much useful information. Like we get the target IP which we used, which was 192.168.2.18. We got the host name if we had any host name for any particular website, but I am using that website, this OS PWA on my own server upon the VMware on a virtual machine. So I would probably not have a hostname. So that's why it's giving an IP. Then we have the target port, as we mentioned, the HTTP. So we are getting the number which is 80, and there we get the start name. We get the server which is running, which is Ubuntu. And okay, so probably I could show you the file where it is generated. So we have in GitHub, Nikto scan, there we have it. Okay, so that's the file wherever the scan results are stored. So not getting much deeper into it because I don't pretty much like, because it's just a command line utility. So I think it should be used that way to kind of give it a respect over its type. Okay, so we have the server, we already talked about it, which is Ubuntu, and we got the PHP, it's using PHP, and some Python based scripts, and we have OpenSSL, which is on this version, and majorly all of the information about that web server which we aim to use, or we are going to paint this. We had some server leaks which have probably inodes via etags, and header with the file probably a slash, which was found at this particular inode. Then we have the anti-clickjacking X framework is not present. So it is, so we can probably guess from it, or we have the clear answer over there that the clickjacking attack is possible. Then we have the XSS protection header is not defined, so it is vulnerable to cross-site scriptings as well. This header can hint to the user agent to protect against some forms of excesses that I already told you guys. Okay. So then we have the X content type options. Header is not set, and this could allow the user to probably render the content of the site in a different fashion, the MIME type. Okay, then we have probably the directory indexing is found. That means it is vulnerable to directory transversal attack, which is dot slash. Then we have some cross-domain.xml, which contains a full wildcard entry, and we can go to this particular link to know more about this particular vulnerability. And then we have IP address found in the location header, and the IP is localhost. It is using the localhost IP because it is running on my local IP, so localhost. So it is probably giving that IP, which is the localhost. Then we have the IIS may reveal its internal or real IP. So we can guess that it probably is using IIS, uh, and we can get the value over the this IP or this given URL. And then we have some uncommon header TCN found with it, with the contents list. And then we have some Apache, which allows attackers to see brute force file names, so we can guess that it is, we can easily do a brute force attack to its file names, and we can just see uh, this URI for much more information about that particular vulnerability which is present. Then we have the following alternatives for index was found. Okay, so it is using index.css as well as index.html. So these both are the alternatives which it is suggesting us. Then we have SSL, which appears to be outdated. So SSL is outdated, Perl is outdated, PHP is outdated, Fusion Passenger is outdated, Proxy HTML is outdated, Apache, Modpul, Python, OpenSSL, ModSL, these all are outdated. And we are using allowed HTTP method, which is a great vulnerability because it generally passes the communication as a plain text, which nowadays we don't use. But yeah, as far as this particular web server is concerned, so it is a great vulnerability. So it is showing us that we have a get, head, post options and trace methods for this web server. Then we have this vulnerability, which is HTTP trace method is active. It basically suggests the host is vulnerable to XSD. Okay, so we have one more kind of attack which is possible, and then we have mod SSL, we have open SSL, and these many are and lower, like from these all uh, are vulnerable to a remote buffer overflow, which may allow a remote shell. Okay, so we can also like open up a remote shell on this particular uh, web server, or we can say a web application. So we are given a CVE link. From there we can probably get up the exploit, and we can just uh, exploit it and uh, get the access. Then we have a cookie-based information which is created without the HTTP only flag, which is again a great vulnerability for this same as well. Then we received a X-powered header, which is a PHP. Okay. Then we have some more vulnerabilities like PHP is managing for MySQL database, so we probably know that it is using a MySQL database and should be protected or limited to authorized users. We also know that it is uh, openly available to, not restricting on its own users, but available over the web to any users. Okay, so then we have the test, which is a directory indexing is found. Then we have again, this might be interesting. Okay, so it is probably telling us to know more about this application and making us curious. Okay, so we also have another directory. This also might be interesting. Okay, so turning out to be more curious, and possibly a system shell found. Okay, so we have a system shell at this location. Okay, so we have a bash history, a user's home directory, maybe set. So we probably know that we have all the commands which we write in the bash shell. They are stored in the .bash underscore history file. So this probably should not be accessible via the web, but it is. So it is a gain vulnerability, and then we have the ID of that vulnerability, and then again directory founding, directory list, directory indexing found. Then we again had that one. We again had Apache default file found. It is using a Apache default server probably, and Apache WordPress installation was found. Okay, and the PHP admin directory was again found that we already had here. Okay, so yeah, at last we also have that it is managing a MySQL database, which we already saw here, and same. Okay, okay, so we probably got one error, but we don't want to see that, and 38 items were reported on the remote host. Okay, so we probably can now see that how useful Nikto can be for like having all the vulnerabilities which all are present over any web server, and we can probably see that, and we can probably have a look and store that in a file that I already showed you, and but I'm not used to, because it's command line utility, so it should be used that way. Like, I think so. It could be somewhat else for you, but for me, I probably think so. And so that's it for the day. And let's catch up in the next video, which would be again on the VAPD domain. And thank you for now. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, or post out a comment if you have any doubts regarding the Nikto tool, or you might have some suggestions over the new upcoming videos.